Someone like you, I wish nothing but the best for you too. I'm trying to... Okay, I should probably... Man, look how laggy and crappy this is going. What the heck? So this is a TvP on a relatively close position. Let's actually... this guy's going to walk to... Oh, he's not going to walk straight there. His probe will walk straight there, so we can time that, right? Maybe it already died? Yeah, it already died. Sorry. So, bear with me. I'm just curious as to how long it takes to walk between the bases. The shorter the walk from his natural to your natural, the better it is for Terran, because Protoss has warp in, so he doesn't have to walk from his base to yours. He gets to teleport there. And to make things even, 50 seconds seems to be about the it's even mark. What the hell, man? I wanted to time it, and then I totally forgot to look. Okay. He leaves at 1 minute. And he gets here at 1:42. So this is a really good, like, 40 seconds. That's better than 50, right? So anything less than 50 is great. So 42-second distance between his and yours. That means that you don't have to expo in order to respond to his expo. In TvP, Von Brosif, what you want to do is be immune to 7-minute pushes and then have a strong 9.5 to 10-minute push of your own. So the first step of being immune to crap is to make a wall-in, because if he does a proxy double gate and you don't have a wall-in, you lose. So good, you've got a wall-in. You have succeeded in the first step. The second step, Monseigneur, is to have enough to deal with the 5-minute stalker poke. So we'll go forward and see what you have at 5 minutes. It is 5 minutes now. And it looks like you have 2 Marines. So if he'd done a stalker poke right now, he would probably have gotten to kill 2 of those Marines and then get away. So that's not very good. You want enough to resist the stalker poke, but it didn't happen, so let's not worry too much about it. The stalker poke from him is going to come super late because of this fast expo, and so we don't really care. One thing to note is what I like to do on this map is you build your racks here and your supply depot here and your second racks here. And then you lift this racks and make a reactor core and build a bunker. And then you lift this racks and make a tech lab and make a supply depot. So that you end up with 1 supply depot, 1 bunker, and 1 supply depot as your wall. You don't really want your racks to be at the front of your base the way that you do in TvZ, because he doesn't have banelings. So the hit points of the thing making the wall hardly matter at all. And if he makes void rays, he gets to kill your wall. And you don't want that to mean that you have to lift and now you have a racks with no add-on, because then you just lose the whole game. Like if your racks has to lift and abandon this add-on, you lose. If your racks dies, you lose. So really bad to have both racks on the front of your base like this. That's really bad. You don't have concussive shells, so chasing the stalker away, you're not going to get to kill it. Very sad. That's not something you did wrong or anything. I'm just saying it because that's what I noticed. So let's look at what happens in Protoss land when you take a fast expansion. Is that you worry. He's putting these dudes down here relatively early, because if you come all the way to his base with your first 2 racks pressure, and he saw 2 raxes too, so he knows that you're going to do 2 racks pressure. If you get all the way down here, there's no way for 2 stalkers to kill 2 marauders. It's just, especially with concussive shells, it's completely impossible. So what he's going to want to do is retreat and buy time and buy time and buy time. And if he needs to, he's going to fight with probes, because probes are crazy good against marauders. Once a warp-in is done, he no longer has to buy time. Once warp-in is done, he kind of wins. And you never want to still be here when warp-in is done, because then you lose everything at the front of his base. So what you wanted to do was say, warp-in usually finishes around 6 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm going to push to his base, see if he has an expo, and then I'm going to leave at about 6 minutes and 10 seconds. You see, because if you wait until warp in, now he's not afraid of anything anymore because he can chrono boost his gateway and warp in over and over and over, and good times are had by all. So at this point, you want to get in here and you just want to see if there's an expo, see if there's an expo. You already knew that there was an expo, so there's not even really much point in making this poke. It's okay to make it because, again, you're immune to damage at this point, but you're not reinforcing it with any Marines and Marauders. You're not using your racks. This poke is putting you behind, and it's not putting him behind at all. So you have $600 at home, and you're not spending any of it. You've stopped making depots. You're making a bunker. Like, this whole game is basically lost right now. This is when the game was over, and it's not because he took a fast expo. Like, it's not the build that he went that did this. It's what you did. You took, let's see, $300, and you walked it for 50 seconds across the field. And you said, I hope my $300 army is better than whatever he's going to have at 6 minutes and 30 seconds. And when have you ever seen someone not have $300 of army at 6 minutes and 30 seconds when warping is done? That's just completely suicidally crazy, and you should not have done that whatsoever. I do like the initial poke. I don't like committing with it and losing all of the units for no reason. Also, I would like it if the initial poke included a second Marauder who is following up, so that if you are forced to retreat, he'll see the second Marauder and say, you know what, this isn't worth it, I'm not going to chase him, and then you get away. Yeah. I don't even know if it's worth going through the rest of the game. It seems like you should just send me a different game where you fast expanded and you lost, because this is a bad example. Like, you're already so far behind at this point. Just because you missed production cycles off of these 2 racks, and you'll never get them back. So you're down 5 Marines and a Marauder from what he killed, but you're also down like 6 more Marines and 2 or 3 more Marauders from what you just didn't build. And I know that you've spent all your money, but that just means that your army size is reasonable. But the composition isn't reasonable. You don't have enough Marines and Marauders. You don't want 2 tanks and siege mode and a bunch of Marines and Marauders at this point. You want a ton of Marines and Marauders on 1 tank. And no bunker and no anything like that. Also, why did you make the bunker when you saw that he had the Nexus? You never need a bunker against someone who goes for a fast Nexus. Now let's see what else happens, but this game is totally lost, and there's nothing you can do. I do love that you're keeping up on worker production. It seems like at 8 minutes you had 30 workers, but let's make sure. Yeah, you weren't really behind on workers. So even though you did that poke, you never fell behind on workers, and that's because you're queuing them up, and that is great, and I think you should always queue up workers, and you should never fall behind, and that is awesome. And I love what you did there. I suspect this factory was early. So, like I've said before, if you make only SCVs, depots, and Marines and Marauders, you will have enough money. You will run out of money every time you make Marines and Marauders. You will just have zero money at all, zero money at all, zero money at all until 6 minutes and 30 seconds. So you're having to skip a Marine and a Marauder here in order to afford this factory. And I never want you to skip stuff out of your racks. Your racks are what's going to win you the game. Your factory is just there to make sure that his sentries can't force field your army in half. The factory units, they don't do damage. They're support units. The same way that a medevac doesn't do damage. And if someone said, you're going to make a 10-minute push, do you want to have 5 medevacs and a smattering of M&M, or do you want to have tons of M&M and 1 medevac? Which one is better? Obviously, the more M&M you have, the better. The medevac is just there to heal up when you stim. He's there to make you recover from that stimming. Medevacs don't actually contribute to your strength in a battle so much. I mean, they do a little bit, but not enough for it to matter. They're really just there to allow you to use stim without constantly getting weaker and weaker. Yeah, and they synergize really well with pulled workers as well, but you only need 1 or 2 medevacs for that. Anyway, same thing with tanks. Tanks don't do damage. Tanks are not good against Protoss. Tanks are actually quite bad against Protoss. But what they do is they extend the range of your army. They make it so that you can't be force fielded, because in order to force field you, a sentry has to be within 7 range of where he's going to put the force field. And siege tanks have 13 range. So that means if you siege up tanks, you've got 5 or 6 range in front of that tank where you're unforce fieldable, right? Because your siege tank would just they two-shot sentries, so sentries don't go near tanks, and so that's the job of tanks. Anyway, it's too late at this point. It's 10 minutes in. With an expo this early, you have to hit within usually. Okay, the way this works is when an expo goes down, you've got 3 minutes where you're going to be ahead, and after that point, you're going to be even. And then for about 1 minute, you'll be even. And then after 4 minutes of when the expo starts, so at 8 minutes, you're going to be behind. And then you're going to be further and further behind. But each minute, you're only going to get behind by like $300. So it's not a big deal to attack at 8 minutes or 9 minutes or 10 minutes. But it becomes a pretty huge, I mean, it stacks up, right? So if 8 minutes you're tied, 9 minutes you're $300 behind, 10 minutes you're $600 behind, 11 minutes you're $900 behind. At that point, you've lost. Also, it's important to note that you're going to cap your own saturation at about 7 minutes and 30 seconds. So every moment from 7 minutes and 30 seconds on, every SCV you're making is a combat warrior SCV. He's a warrior! He's not adding to your income, whereas every probe that this dude makes is increasing his income. In Protoss land, what he wants to do is be chrono boosting the heck out of his Nexus, and every time he chrono boosts something that isn't his Nexus, it's putting him a little bit behind. And you'll notice when you did your poke, he had to chrono boost this, and he had to chrono boost this, and that put him a little bit behind. So that's why the poke is nice. But, oh, I'm losing my voice, dude. Okay, anyway, completely unharassed Protoss with a 4-minute Nexus is going to have 38 workers at 7 minutes and 40 seconds. So right now, if you hadn't harassed him and he'd spent all of these chrono boosts and he'd spent them on probes, he'd have 38 workers. You put him 9 workers behind with your poke. That is why the poke is good. But you never want that poke to die. So understanding the purpose of what you do is really important, because losing the poke is worse than not making it. Like, it's nice to do it and then get away, but doing it and losing it is like so much worse than just not doing it at all. So now he's finally on 38 workers. Usually they'll stop at 38. Looks like he's not going to stop. He probably feels pretty comfortably ahead because he because he killed that initial poke. He's going to go to 40 because he took this third gas. So yeah, it took him a full extra 2 minutes to get to the point where he wanted to be just because of your poke, so that's really cool. Good job. Anyway, so look at his army size at 10 minutes. Your goal was to take a $3,500 army plus $800 of SCVs, and that would be $4,300, and attack him at 10 minutes. If you attacked this $2,400 army with $4,300 of dudes, and you had siege tanks there to make sure he couldn't force field you, he would be dead. That would be the end of this game. So, in your email and in the name of this video, you're saying, when he gets an early expansion, he ends up having such a huge army by the time I show up that I lose. And that is just a lie that you're telling to yourself. You need to remember the benchmarks, okay? A 1-base Protoss can have a $4,000 army at 10 minutes. This fast expanding Protoss has a $2,400 army. He's got practically no army at 10 minutes. Okay, fast expands don't put you ahead. They put you behind. So yeah, I hope that alleviates your fear of fast expands. If he fast expands, just do what you were going to do anyway, and it will almost every time work. Because with the fast expand, he gets greedy. He makes all these probes, and just puts him way behind. So yeah, if they fast expand and they sprint to 38 workers, like instantly, like at 7 minutes and 40 seconds, then they will end up with a $4,000 army at 10 minutes. Instead of the 3,500 that's the benchmark. So it gives them like a $700 advantage to get that 4-minute expo, because over the 3 minutes that they have after it's been up for 3 minutes, right? So it goes down at 4, it's paid for itself at 7, and then by 10 it's been 3 extra minutes. Each of those extra 3 minutes has given them a little bit of extra money. So like 250, 250, 250, but they end up with $700 more than they would have had, and you'll still have a bigger army than them. So even if he has a $4,000 army, you have a $4,200 army because you pulled workers. So, you know, don't worry about it. I get it. Fast expansions are scary because it gives them a bigger army if he does it perfectly. But even if he does it perfectly, that army will not be too big. It will just be slightly bigger, you know? Bigger doesn't mean, oh no, it's so huge. It just means, you know, instead of 3,500, he's got 42. But I don't mind. I like saying, by the way, it's just fun. I'm like a horse. I'm like, so this army is tiny of yours. Tiny army. You've got one medevac. You want two. You've got a Raven. That's okay. It's got a second starport that didn't do anything. You've had idle racks for a long time. At 11 minutes and 30 seconds to have a $3,500 army plus not even combat shields. Yeah, you do have siege mode. So you've got $500 of research. You've got $4,000. So you have a $4,000 army, which is what you should have at 10 minutes if you're doing a really good job. Or 10 minutes and like 30 seconds if not. So you're about a minute and a half behind. Plus, you don't actually have a $4,000 army because you lost a bunch of stuff already, $600 of stuff. So you actually only have a 2,700 plus 500 research army. So teeny tiny army. There's just no way for you to win this game at this point. His economy is massively better than yours. He already has his endgame tech. Your army is tiny. Like, they shouldn't have even tried. So when this sort of thing happens to you, when you lose that first poke, you pretty much lost the game. And you can still win if he makes a big mistake, but you still have to come before 10 minutes. So you want to be pushing out at 9.5 minutes. And then you want your last medevac to pop and float over, and he gets there super quick because he can fly a straight line instead of having to walk all the way around kind of thing. You know, like, you want to be hitting him at 10 minutes, but you want to start walking at 9.5. You want to get here and be like, ah! You know, you make that noise, and then he dies. So I think it's pretty clear why you lost this game. But you're not really saying, hey, why did I lose this game? You're saying, in general, why do I lose when I face this kind of thing? And I feel like the efficiency of your racks is really important. This build is super efficient. And by efficient, I mean you have exactly enough buildings to spend all of your money and not a single extra building. So if you ever miss a single queue of anything, you are behind indefinitely. You'll never catch up because you don't have that extra building. So a one base income from Terran is $1,000 plus $225 of gas. If you're making double medevacs, you're spending $225 of gas. You're spending every single bit of gas you have off of that one starport. If you're making double banshees, that means $200 of gas. That spends every little bit of your gas. You have no extra gas. You either make double medevacs or double banshees or medevacs and Vikings. No matter what you do, either a reactor rack starport or a tech or two tech lab starports, it's going to spend all your gas. So if you want researches and you want siege tanks, you have to get them before your starports start doing their thing, because otherwise you just won't have enough gas. So that spends all your gas, and it also spends either 300 minerals if you're making banshees, or 225 minerals if you're making medevacs, or 360 minerals if you're making Vikings. So a lot of minerals. That means of the 1,000 minerals you have left over, you have to spend 100 of it every 30 seconds on supply depots, and 100 of it every 30 seconds on SCVs. So now you went from 1,000 to 700, and now you're down to 500. And 500 minerals per minute left over is what you can make if you use two racks constantly, right? This rack is 250, this rack is 250. You know what I'm saying, yo? So the build is absolutely efficient. There is not a single penny left over to spend on anything else, and you will have $0 if you do it perfectly. But anytime you miss a queue, your bank will go up a little bit, and that money that you add to your bank will never go away because you don't have enough buildings to spend the extra money. You'll end up making Hellions. You'll be like, well, you know what? I missed a queue of 2 Marines, and I have an extra $100, and I have this factory here. The only way to spend this money is to get Hellions, you know? Or you'll make a turret, and you'll be like, you know what? I got the money. I can't possibly spend it. Might as well make a turret. So, And that's not what you want to happen. You want to spend money on all these buildings constantly. Constantly spending the money on the buildings. It's so important. So, yeah, let's just kind of watch these buildings and say you should have 2 dots here and 1 dot here and 1 dot here for the entire game. And you don't, right? Missing a dot. Missing 2 dots. Missing 1 dot, missing 1 dot. Look, nothing. You have nothing. Okay, you're missing again all 3 of them at once. Missing all of them at once. Oh, you've got stuff queued up. Missing 2 Marines. Missing Marauder. So yeah, that's why you lost. This. And this is good to know because, okay, in your TVZ games, you're going to have idle racks all the time. In your TVT games, you're going to have idle buildings all the time. Because your plan in those games is, alright, by 16 minutes, I want to have. Or by 20 minutes, I want to have. And I need to remember to get my 5th base at 22 minutes. It's like your plan is so long term that it almost doesn't matter what happens in the meantime. You can miss queues of everything and it doesn't even matter. When you miss a queue from these buildings, assuming you make 2 more racks in the future, you can catch up in the future. So in TVT and TVZ, because we're going for a longer term game, it doesn't matter if we miss stuff. But in TVP, this game will be over. We will win or we will lose by 10 minutes. Okay? Even though the clock might say 15 minutes at the end of the game ended at 10 minutes. And so we have to build exactly the right number of buildings and use them perfectly in order to have the exact perfect army at 10 minutes, you know? So it's just, what you really need to do is just stare at your base. And if that means you don't do the poke, then don't do the poke. Because the most important thing in TvP is to use your buildings efficiently, because the game is not going to go long enough for you to make up for any errors you make. It's not going to go long. And you spend a second with this SCV not making the next depot, that's also bad. So, yeah. Dude. You know? Dude. Anyway. So when you wonder why you didn't win a TvP game, you don't have to ask me, because asking me costs money. You can do it yourself for free. Open the replay, select your 2 racks in your command center, and watch. And if you ever miss a single queue in any of those buildings, that's why you lost. Go back, do it again, don't miss a queue in any of the buildings. And then if you ever lose a game without missing any queues, and you attacked at exactly 10 minutes with exactly $3,500 of army, and you didn't get caught unsieged and nothing completely ridiculous happened and you still lose, that's when you send me the replay, because that's a question worth having answered, you know? But you never want to feel like, I don't know why I lost, and then not check why you lost, because it's so easy to do, man. You just click on the buildings and you say, hey, well, yeah, what happened? All right, did I hit all the benchmarks? I hit all the benchmarks and I still lost. There's something terribly wrong, right? I didn't hit all the benchmarks. Well, that's why I lost. Anyway, I hope this is helpful, man. So you notice that he was able to force field your army in half. What you want to do when you push up here with tanks, like I said, losing my voice. The only point in tanks don't do damage. The only point in tanks is to keep the sentries out of range of force field, right? So what you want is a tank to be sieged here and a tank to be sieged here, and your infantry standing here and here and here, and the SCVs in front, and you never go up the ramp. Tanks are fully sieged. Poke forward with the Raven and the medevac. Get vision. The tanks fire 2 shots. The Protoss has to retreat, or else he's just standing there taking tank fire for no reason whatsoever. He retreats. Now you can get up the ramp, right? If he wants to walk in and force field the ramp with your dudes on it, he has to walk close with the sentries. You have your siege tanks targeted, you kill the sentries, that kind of thing. So, purpose of siege tanks is to deny this force field that happened. You got force fielded in half, basically just because you didn't siege your tanks before moving in. The PDD is awesome. The PDD does great things. The army sizes at this point are just so unbelievably not close that it's hard to imagine you winning. But the force fields did play quite a large role. So you're behind 300 plus 600 is $900. And you've got $800 of workers. So you're basically $100 behind. Immortals are crazy strong against a siege tank composition. But in general, they won't be able to get forward enough to touch the siege tanks. So what really cost you here was this force field. So none of your units are shooting. That's kind of bad. I think that's kind of bad. The siege tanks do manage to do some stuff, but again, when none of your units are shooting, it feels like, okay, well, at least my siege tanks are shooting and they're doing damage, right? But siege tanks don't do damage. Siege tanks don't hurt things. They're a support unit. Don't count on their damage to mean anything, because the fraction of your army spending that went towards siege tanks is tiny. This is like $600 out of 3,000 or out of 4,000. So now your army size is less than half of his, and there's no workers left, and the game just kind of ends. So another way to try not to get force fielded in half like this is to think to yourself, where is he going to put his force fields? And then you want to walk past that point so that he places his force fields. I'm sorry, I'm talking so slow because I've lost my voice, basically. So you walk up here and you say, he's going to force field his natural right there. That's where the force fields are coming down. So you want to get your siege tanks here and here, or something like that. And you want your medevacs floating right here. And you want to have maybe 3 SCVs walk past that point and get force fielded in half and die. And then he'll stay there to kill those 3 SCVs, and you can get some siege tank shots and hopefully kill some sentries. What you don't want to do is take all of your SCVs and put them on the other side of where he's going to force field. That's not good. So right here, this is terrible. You never want it so that, oh, look, half my army is on one side and half is on the other. That's really bad. Another thing that I do a lot is to do a drop up here, because then he's kind of forced to take some of his guys and put them up here. Really, you just kind of want to be patient with this push. I know there's a clock. Your income has dropped from 1,200 to 800, and his has been climbing all game, and now it's up to this ridiculously high margin. Honestly, attacking at 12 minutes, this game is already over because you waited so damn long. But every minute that you delay your push gives him a $300 advantage. Is it worth $300 to dance around and get perfect positioning? I mean, positioning matters so much that yes, I would easily pay $300 to get the right positioning and to get the right engage. Also, right here, you can just pick these guys in the medevac and walk them away. I know it's scary that the stalkers could kill the medevac when you do that, and that will happen about a third of the time, but the other 2/3 of the time you'll save 8 workers, and that'll be awesome. Losing the Raven is terrible. You want to not hotkey your Ravens. You want your Raven to auto-follow one of your siege tanks. And as you go into battle, place the PDD super early. They last for like 6 months. So just place the PDD after you sieged your tanks and before you moved past the force field point. And then you just never have to look at your Raven again. Just plant him behind your stuff so that this observer can't constantly be here. You never want him to even have Colossus when you push. Waiting until 13 minutes means he can have 2 Immortals and a Colossus. That's so bad. Colossus take 75 seconds to build. Immortals take 55 seconds to build. It's just ridiculous. If he makes... In general, if you attack at 9 minutes, he'll either have 1 Immortal and 1 Colossus, or just 1 Colossus, or just some Immortals or whatever. The Robo in general can't go up until he feels safe to hold off this push, because it takes like 65 seconds to get the Robo and then 55 seconds to make the Immortal. So it's going to be 2 minutes from when he decides he wants a Robo until the first thing comes out of that Robo. So that makes him super vulnerable. So Protosses will not make that Robo unless they feel safe. And he feels safe after he kills your push. But if you make a little poke and then you walk away, he doesn't feel safe enough to put down a Robo. He's going to make 3 gates, and he's going to get units out of those 3 gates, and so on and so forth. or he's going to make enough sentries that he can feel safe. But that means he has no army whatsoever, kind of thing, you know? Anyway. So a long time between when he decides to get this robo and when the first immortal is out. And so you notice at 9.5 minutes when you want to be walking across the field, he has no immortals. He's got a teeny tiny, horribly bad army. And I feel like if you'd attacked at this point, which is when you're supposed to attack, as long as you'd gotten good position with the siege tanks, you could have killed him, you know? So you want like your siege tanks here and here, and they're protecting this ramp with the vision of one flying unit, and then he's got to move his sentries away, and then you can get your whole army up there, and now force fields are irrelevant. He can't use force fields in a way that reduces your army size if your whole army is up here, protected by siege tanks. Anyway, you attacked late. You didn't use your Raxes constantly. When you pushed out, your composition was kind of gas heavy. Let's see if you emptied the... Yeah, you did salvage the bunker, so that's good. You want your composition to be very marine heavy, and because marines are the best unit you have. But in order for a marine heavy composition to work, he can't have Colossus. You'll just lose. So that's why you got to go early. And look at how much money you have in the bank. This is the same problem as you had in TvZ. You're going for builds that are called timing attacks. You get something really strong and you hit the second you have it so that you can take advantage of that timing when you're stronger than him. When you do a timing attack, your money has to say 0-0 at the beginning of the attack. And when you're pulling workers, it should be so easy to get your money to say 0-0 because your income just got cut in half. Or whatever, you know, like, so you should never have $1,000 in the bank when you're attacking. That's just so wrong, man, so wrong. And if your army is hotkeyed, what you can do is follow it with your camera as you're just macroing with your hands. So you just select your racks and you build stuff and you build stuff. And you never select your army because it's doing what you told it to do. It's walking across the field. You stare at it and macro. Stare at your army and macro, and stare at your army and macro. Yep. Anyway. So again, I know it feels like when they fast expand, it gives them a bigger army, but if you look at the army size at 10 minutes, it does not give them a larger army. Feel confident to attack at the same time as you would whether or not they fast expand. Don't feel like you need a different build if they fast expand. This is the same build you can use every time, no matter what they do. Don't worry about what they're doing. Always attack by 10 minutes. That is all. Master Chief Billy Sunday.